Hey guys, what's going on? Jordan here from Hardcore Music Studio. In this video, I'm going to show you my most essential Pro Tools key commands and shortcuts for editing. So just right up front before I go further here, I also created a little cheat sheet for you. It's got all of the key commands that I'm going to mention in this video and demonstrate for you. They're all going to be listed there, so you can go ahead and click on the link on the screen or in the description below, and you can go and sign up for the email list, and then I'll send you that free cheat sheet. So don't worry about trying to like pause the video and take note of all these shortcuts as you're watching here. Just take it in and then go and download that cheat sheet, and you'll have that for quick reference to remember all of the key commands that I've talked about in this video. Clearly there's a ton of keyboard shortcuts, right? And I'm not going to cover all of them here, but I've basically tried to think of, what are the things that I do without even realizing that I'm doing it? Like, what are the automatic muscle memory keyboard shortcuts that I use all the time without even thinking, And actually putting this list together is a little bit hard because it is muscle memory. I'm not even thinking as I'm doing this. My fingers just automatically do it. And once you get to that point, it's really easy to work incredibly fast in Pro Tools or any DAW that you're using. But for me, I can fly around Pro Tools and do stuff just automatically because I've just done it over and over again. And these are the key commands that I really rely on when I'm recording and editing especially. So while this is not a comprehensive list of every keyboard command in Pro Tools by any means, there's certainly a lot that I'm not going to talk about in this video that are useful in different scenarios, but these are the ones that on a daily basis during tracking or editing that I use over and over and have just become automatic and that I absolutely rely on. So with that said, let's just jump right into it here. So here's my Pro Tools window. Now, right up front, before I tell you what any of these are, way up in the right-hand corner here is this little AZ button, and that is called the keyboard focus button. So basically, when that's on, when it's highlighted in this orangey yellow, that means that all of the keyboard commands I'm going to show you will work they're just a single key rather than, for example, copy and paste. Normally in any app, it's Command C, Command V on a Mac. But with this enabled, it takes away the command button. So you just hit C or V or X for cut. And a lot of these other shortcuts that I'll show you work with just a single letter on the keyboard rather than having to hold Alt or Command or whatever. So make sure you have keyboard focus on. In all my years using Pro Tools, there's no reason to not have that on. So make sure that's on. Okay, so let's dive into it. Let's start really simple. Zoom in and zoom out. You can do that with a single key. It's R for zoom out, T for zoom in. Super simple. When I'm editing or tracking or even mixing, my two fingers, my middle finger and index finger, are just resting on R and T, because as I'm like working through the session and zooming around and stuff, that's what I'm using all the time. If I want to go back to the beginning section, I'm selecting there, hitting T, and then if I want to zoom out, I'm hitting R. So R and T for zooming in and out, super basic. But if you're using some other combination with like the plus minus and command and blah blah blah, not efficient. Just one key there, R and T, to zoom in and out. Next, one that I was surprised to find out that not a lot of people know about is trimming an audio region just with the A key or the S key. So normally when you're trimming a region, if you use your mouse, you hover over so it makes that little bracket, and then you can drag it in and out, right? That's okay, but I like to actually just use the A key to trim the audio up to the cursor, and then you can use the S key to trim the audio from the end to the cursor. Okay, so let me do that again. Let's say I want to cut this here. You just click where you want to cut, hit A, that'll trim it up to there. Or if you're going the other way at the end of the region, same thing, you select the point where you want to trim to with the cursor and then hit S. So to me, that is way faster than trying to like find the spot with your mouse and then drag it back like that. When I'm editing like really quickly and I'm just moving through stuff, like I'll just go, A or S, whatever the case may be. And then that leads me to the next one, which is where I'm usually using these two together, is the fading in and out, which you can fade in with the letter D, and you can fade out with the letter G. So similar to the A and S for trimming, you just click and put the cursor where you want the fade to end, and hit D to fade in, or the opposite if you want to show the cursor, you want to fade out from the cursor, then you select that spot and hit G. Okay, so let me give you an example. Like say we've got this big region of vocal tracks here. So I just want to clean that up and make it a little shorter. So we're going to go A, D, same thing over here, S, G, boom. And you can even use this on the fades to make them shorter or longer. If I realize that, that fade was too long, rather than using the mouse, again, you just zoom in, and then you can even do it the other way. I'm hitting A there to trim that fade. So if you're selecting on a fade, then it's going to trim the fade itself and not the actual audio region. So that's how I use those key commands for trimming and then fading with a single key there. Super useful, super quick. All right, next, to cut a region, so to split it at the cursor, you use the key B. There you go. So again, you're just hitting the cursor somewhere, hitting B, and then you can also do this with the selection. So I can select this little piece here, hit B, and it's going to cut on both ends. So that's B to separate a region. Now, makes sense to cover after that is how to heal a separation. So obviously you can just undo, but if you've got a separation here that you did a while ago and you can't undo it, you can select it and hit Command H to heal it, so to get rid of that cut. So sometimes you just, you just want it to look neater and you haven't actually changed the region at all and it's cut, you just hit the Command H to heal it there. So that is one that you actually do have to use the Command key. It doesn't work with just the H key. For some reason, they've made it like that. Okay. Another good one is to trim a region on both sides. So I've showed you how to, trim from the start. I've showed you how to trim from the end, but you can also trim both at the same time by making a selection and hitting Command T. So that trims both the front and the back to whatever you've selected. So Command T, that's super useful as well. Also, maybe I should have mentioned at the start, the kind of typical copy, cut, paste is C, X, and V. So C for copy, X for cut, V for paste. So super obvious here. I'm going to hit X. Let's go over here, paste it, V. So very simple, just copy, paste like you would in any app. But remember, with keyboard focus on, you just have to use the single key. You don't have to do the combination key command. Okay, hopefully you're liking this so far. I got a few more for you that we're going to go through. So the next one is how to zoom in vertically on a waveform. So I've showed you how to zoom out horizontally like that. But what if let's say you're editing a drum track, like, let's check this out. See these transients, they're kind of low, right? They're kind of very small, hard to see. So if you want to zoom those in, then the keyboard shortcut is Command, Option, and then the little square bracket key on your keyboard. So you can hit either bracket key. So the left bracket zooms out and the right bracket zooms in like that. So you can kind of quickly just zoom in all the waveforms, and that works like every track in the section. It's not just in the session, sorry, not just the one that you're working on. As you can see, it's zooming in all of the tracks here. And then, by the way, a quick way to make sure that you're zoomed in properly, because sometimes, you can be really zoomed in and you might think, oh, geez, my signal's way too hot here, when clearly it's not. You just double click the zoom button there. It gets you back to the neutral, basically 100% zoom, so it's not increased or decreased, which is helpful for just seeing the levels of your audio there. So if you ever are unsure if you're zoomed in too much, or like if this is the actual, level of the waveform that you're seeing, just double click the magnifying glass there. All right, so the next key commands I'm going to show you are related to nudging audio around the timeline. So usually kind of as a beginner, and definitely for me, it was all about the mouse, right? You're just moving stuff around with your mouse. But as I went on, I just found I wanted more control over, just really minute timing adjustments, especially when I'm editing vocals. If something feels a bit laggy or a bit rushed, then I'll want to just nudge, the whole line or the whole region back just a tiny bit. And I found the magical number here is 10 milliseconds. So right up here where it says grid and nudge, this is the amount that the nudge key is going to move it. So I usually keep it set on 10 milliseconds. But sometimes you do change it up. But 10 milliseconds to me is the go-to number. That's where I usually have it. To nudge a region back or forward in the timeline, it's simple. It's just the plus or minus key on the numpad. So this is why I cannot work on a Pro Tools rig with one of the short Mac keyboards that doesn't have the number pad on the side. I refuse to do that. I have to have the full-size keyboard here. So plus or minus. So if I want to nudge this back, 3 little taps there. If I want to nudge it back forward, and it's moving it by 10 milliseconds at a time there. So I find that really useful just for minute timing adjustments, especially on vocals, like I said. Now, if you want to increase or decrease the amount that it's nudging each time, you can do that again with key commands. You don't have to go up here with your mouse and select it. You can hit Command, Option, plus or minus. So Command, Option, plus. Keep an eye on the nudge number up there. It's going to 100, or we can go down to 1, or we can go down to 500. So this just means, when I hit the nudge button, how far it's going to move, right? But normally I keep it on 10, and then sometimes I'll bump it up and down quickly using that key command just if I need to move something a little bit more. And I just find it basically with all this stuff, it's like the less that you can rely on constantly reaching for your mouse and doing stuff, I just find that slower than just keeping your hands in one spot and just, just hitting keys on the keyboard. It just is faster for your editing workflow. All right, another quick and easy one is consolidating regions, which you do with Option Shift 3. And this is the 3 on the top number row, not the numpad. So usually I use this a lot if I'm editing something and I've got tons of cuts. So, let's say I'm just faking this here, but let's say this vocal track was edited like that. It's got tons of cuts and I just want it to look nice and pretty, or I'm archiving this session because it's all done and the mix is out. And I just want to, get rid of all the cuts and just have one audio track, or you're sending your tracks to someone else to mix. You don't want to have all these split individual regions. You need to consolidate. So you can select whatever you want to select, either by dragging like that. By the way, you can also use the keyboard and the tab key to shift along, and like hold shift while you're hitting tab, and that's going to either tab to transient, or if tab to transient is off, then it's going to select to the next region. So that can be useful as well. But for the sake of this, let's just say you're selecting this, you want to consolidate it, you hit Option Shift 3, that creates one region. So like I said, if I'm archiving or sending off sessions, I'll just do this with the entire track and consolidate it like that. And then remember, these are all cuts that I've just made in the region, but I haven't actually moved anything, so I can get Command H and heal all of those. All right, moving on, let's throw in a shortcut that has to do with plugins here. So first, let me just put on an SSL channel here. So this is just a blank SSL channel. Let's say I just had a duplicate track that's overlapping or something, and I need to copy the exact same plugin settings over to the other track. So let's bring up this SSL channel, which is dialed in with some vocal settings here. You're going to hit Command Shift C, and you don't see anything happen on the screen. But now we can go over here to the new SSL channel, Command Shift V, and boom, all the plugin settings copied. And this works for any plugin as far as I've seen. I have never had an issue where it hasn't worked. So again, that's Command Shift C to copy the plugin settings, and then Command Shift V to paste the plugin settings. Of course, you just have to have the actual plugin open when you do that. Next one, enabling and disabling groups. So I usually like to have a bunch of tracks, grouped so that I can solo together. Like all my drums are grouped, so I solo them together and whatnot. By the way, you can hold Control within a group if you just want to solo one track without disabling the group. But if you're just editing quickly, and let's say you've got this drum track, but you just want to trim this snare for some reason, rather than going down here and disabling the group by clicking on your mouse, that's slowing you down. All you got to do is Command Shift G, and look down here. See how these all go gray? So that means that all of the groups are disabled right now. So Command Shift G again turns it back on. It just toggles it on and off. So I use this all the time when I'm really at any stage, recording, mixing, and editing. So let's say I'm editing the drums and I'm doing it all together, but there's actually just one kick hit that I just want to nudge by itself. I'll just Command Shift G. That allows me to edit just that track by itself. And then when I want to go back to group editing, I just hit Command Shift G, and then I'm back with the group, right? And it applies to all the group settings too. It's not just editing. So if you have a mix group, like for example, these two guitars here, left and right guitar. By the way, that was Command Option M to make the mix channels bigger or smaller. Little aside there. So you see I've got these two faders linked as a mix group here because I want the left and right guitar to go up and down at the same time. Now, so there's two ways to disable that. So I can go Command Shift G to just do one at a time here, disable the group temporarily, or I can hold the Control key to just temporarily override that group and disable it just on a basically click per click basis. As long as I'm holding Control, then the group doesn't apply. All right, another one that I was surprised that people didn't know about already. I think this came up when I put out the hardcore tracking course, and people are asking, how are you moving your cursor up and down, or moving these regions up and down like that across tracks? And the answer is it's the P and the semicolon key to move the cursor or an entire selection. See how I'm moving this entire selection up and down to different tracks? That's the P key to go up and the semicolon key to go down. So this is useful if you're wanting to move a region from one track to another and you don't want to risk, dragging it with your mouse and maybe like inadvertently putting it to the side by accident. You can actually just go select it, hit copy with the C, and then go down or up to whatever track you want to go to, and then hit paste to put it in there. That's one that I use a lot. And like I said, you can use it with selections up and down, or you can just use it with your cursor up and down like that. All right, just a couple more to wrap up this video. Pro Tools has a couple different timeline modes. There's shuffle, slip, spot, and grid. We pretty much ignore spot. That's more for like post-production work. But the ones you're going to use most often are slip and grid. So basically all that means is slip mode is basically you can just drag a region around wherever you want. It's just freeform moving left and right. Grid mode is going to maintain the position. Grid mode is going to snap the start of a region to a grid line. So you can see how I'm moving this along. It's only letting me put it on the grid here, right? So honestly, a lot of the times I stay in grid mode. If I'm tracking, then I want to have I want to be able to give 2 bars of pre-roll all the time. So if I'm wanting to punch in, right here, I'm just going to go 2 bars back and select that line. And I want to easily be able to click to those snapping points. And of course, if you're editing drums, then you're going to want to be cutting at a transient and then dragging, right to a grid line like that. And you don't want to be like visually trying to line up with the grid, right? The grid mode will do that for you. But then slip is also useful if you're just kind of doing more, just using your ears to hear timing or whatever, or you just need to move stuff around and the grid's not important. Slip mode is useful for that. Or if you need something to be sitting, outside of a grid line, like sometimes you don't want everything slammed exactly on the grid. You want to have it, have a bit of feel. So you can switch to slip mode to do that. And the keys for all this is F2 for slip mode, F4 for grid mode, and F1 for shuffle. But it's kind of rare that you use shuffle, but you do sometimes use shuffle. But basically shuffle, how can I explain it? It basically, if you're gonna delete something, let's say you had an entire verse of a song and you wanted to delete the verse and just bring the 2 halves together, that's when you would use shuffle mode. So for example, let's say I just wanted to do that. Hit F1 for shuffle mode, delete. Notice how it pulls back. It basically closes that gap between those 2 regions. So yeah, it can be useful if you're cutting out an entire section of a song. Then you can just select everything, go to shuffle, and then it'll smush it together like that. Kind of rare, but I do use it. It's useful to know the key command to get there. So again, F1 shuffle, F2 slip, and F4 for grid. Or what I like to do usually is I stay in grid mode pretty much all the time. And if I do need to use slip, like let's say I'm trying to trim this region, but if I'm in grid mode, it's going all the way to that next grid line. But I just want to trim a little bit here, whether it be with the keyboard shortcut or my mouse, then I can just hold Command while I'm doing the operation. So hold Command while I'm trimming like that, or I can hold Command to place my cursor there and then hit the A key, which is what I would actually normally do. So again, holding Command, and then you can do whatever edit you need to do. That temporarily puts it into slip mode while not switching it away from grid mode. Hopefully that's not confusing. Also, real quick, you might have seen the grid resolution change as I was doing that. Again, it was just kind of automatic. But to change the grid resolution, so again, like the nudge, right above it here, you can select whether you want to see 8th note lines, 16th note lines, or just quarter note lines on the grid. And in order to change that without using your mouse, it's Option, Control, plus or minus on the numpad. So right now I'm just on quarter notes. If I want to go to 8th notes, again, Option, Control, minus on the numpad. Then we got 8ths, then we got 16ths, and we just keep going on like that. So that's useful as well. Sometimes you just don't want to see all those grid lines, or you're dragging something around or editing, and you want to work. You need 8th notes. You don't need quarter notes. So you just hit that on the keyboard, and then you can easily get that extra grid resolution there. All right, guys, that just about covers it. I mean, even as I'm demonstrating these, there's others that come to mind, or I'm finding myself automatically doing stuff that I didn't include in the sheet in this video. But again, these are just what I find to be the most essential key commands in Pro Tools that I'm using all the time, and often that have just become muscle memory and automatic that I don't even think about it, which is testament to them being so essential to my workflow. And of course, an ultimate go-to, which I didn't say but used many times in this video that I'm sure you noticed, is the Z key, or Z depending on where you live. That's for undo, so you don't have to hit Command Z. You can just hit the Z key or Z key to undo, and I use that all the time. I rely on it heavily because if you're working fast, you're not trying to be like necessarily super precise every second. You're just trying to get stuff done quick. So if you make a mistake, Z, do it again, no big deal. So So that's it for this video. Sign up to the list, grab the cheat sheet, leave a comment below if you enjoyed this. If there's anything else in Pro Tools specifically that you want to see me covered, leave a comment below, or just hit the like button. Just give me a little bit of feedback. I always appreciate it, and it helps me keep things going here. And make sure you subscribe to the channel as well so you instantly see any videos that I release. All right, guys, so thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later.